And I'll kind of explain that if you want.
Yeah, I'll send you introduce. Yeah, we can't get rid of it. It's still around.
Yeah, we had some good times.
Yeah, had some good times. Now he's a little messed up.
As bad as singing May thought were there, people got along better than they do now, I'll tell you that.
After the hearing.
Everybody wants to.
Yeah, you solved your problems and you walked away and everybody was.
Went and had a beer.
That's right.
Now you start a beer at the guy, hoping you hit him, or his wife.
It's interesting how, that whole dynamic has changed everywhere,
Yeah, everything is 50%.
Yeah.
Either side of the
Yeah,
equation.
I find myself, it's not a.
Oh, it's.
Gotta get back. I think my kids will solve it. They were indicated by the school.
Oh,
It's much more, much more level playing. I saw those cars, I said, oh boy, big crowd.
I knew there was a baseball game.
What's going on?
No game.
There's some kids out
How
there.
are you, Paul?
I'm good, how are you guys doing? Hey, buddy. Hey.
I should not sit here.
5 years.
I shouldn't sit
I'll
next
tell you, that was a tough thing.
Why?
In fact, that was, yes, it was
But he was a kid, right?
we're not selling well, so then one year, we should have just.
You can sit between us.
That's
right.
I had to sell it.
Yeah.
I don't there, shit, what am I gonna do now? What do I do all summer now, okay? I've been living on the floor all summer.
Right. Great life.
Yeah, that was a problem, I guess. Now I gotta fill my time in. But I got used to it eventually, okay? And,
I don't think.
it did get hard
Today I said,
I was at the point that last year,
maybe Steve.
I would probably raise the sales maybe half the time.
And just go on like pretty engine
Pretty
power.
safe matter, okay?
Yeah.
So I was doing more of that, and I was saying, this is sales. I'm now I gotta get up one here, take it down and all that, and a lot of stuff.
Well, you're running back. You tie off your main, helmet so it doesn't drift and.
I'm 80 years old trying to do this, so it was there for maybe it's time.
Well, you get hurt. She can be kind and it can be very cruel.
Yeah, that's right.
Even in harbor,
Yeah.
I've been out there a few times with just friends on small boats, and I'm like, we gotta get back. We gotta get back, because it can go either way quickly, so. So we found a way to fill your time?
Oh, yeah, we are. We took some trips for a while there, and we tend to try to go out, like maybe go someplace for 2 or 3 days here and then come back. Sort of do that stuff. We did take a trip last year. Right, actually went in maritime provinces.
Oh, I wanna do that.
That's nice.
Yeah, you drive, or you take a boat?
Here I am. All right, here's the money. Yeah.
I wanna drive up, because I wanna go to Acadia, so I'm still in a position to do that, so I might do it in the fall after everybody leaves. It's quieter up there, it's still warm, and you can, I've always wanted to do that. All right, I got to get ready for my big action.
That for one evening.
How's Gail?
Okay.
Did they say what it was? Like kites or copies?
Into a Word document.
Yeah.
And then Tim.
Yeah, I tried, but I might.
Because if you copy it, all you get is the title of it for something else.
Yeah, and I was just trying, those microphones don't pick up as well, so that's why I didn't use the lectern.
The good one.
Yep. Yep, absolutely. Just wanted to see it. Todd, do we have an extension cord by chance? Much as I think. I need probably 6 feet of. Alright. As much as this thing has been on today, I need
Bend your
to plug her in, or else
And I bend over?
halfway through the presentation that we did, one of those like.
Live here. And they gave me 2 pills a day. I drink nearly 2 glasses of water. Still can't get rid of the pain in my head. Hi. How are you?
You read?
And there's here.
Good.
I don't really want to be in the front row.
I don't want to be invited.
Are you still 40 hours?
I know. I know, he texted me next Friday afternoon. Hanging over. The rubber mark verification. And that's what he is, but it's pretty much, might have a project I'm doing. Education. Yeah, I can, it's policy. School district, it's policy. So they have somebody come to the scholarship, they said it's policy again, and then we go through it. I'm doing nice now. Guys, you asked me when this might work, I'll try 4 hours, I come, so I put it in private contact. A lot of people say that's the way to stay. You shut it back off, you change everything around, and I like the, can't, like, waivers. They were very
Live tonight, too.
Did he?
So I don't know, yeah, I don't think that's the way.
Like, what happened?
I'm gonna probably talk about I would love to where I knew way out, I want to go smaller, not smaller than Bernie's per se, but Chevy sort of
Yeah.
we still stand on this how this meeting, we're gonna keep owning it, it's gotta be
Wow, we're going to keep this going.
Next level is not coming back. Here.
Great.
you know, if we get the state money, everything. We don't landscaping back and we don't.
Yeah, like I could understand doing it.
But that's we want the basement again, we do. Back up, you know, it's coming to my budget meeting and
No.
we don't want
to 9% or whatever.
They kind of play their numbers.
Yeah.
I like the military.
We're not sure what the game was.
Thank you very much.
I mean, I've been in business too long to know how to play with you. Yeah. I'm just thinking,
I felt somebody sit down next to me. My son.
You go and tell you.
It's hot that I won't say it, but I thought. How does my son stand?
Well, there's. I mean, it's actually my first time showing up.
Speaking of podium. No, I'm gonna stand up, I'm just more comfortable standing, more what's going on in the town.
I'm gonna make my decision whether I'm gonna stay here.
If you stand up, just stop it.
Make sure you turn it on. I've got a lot of broken changes also right though, just so you know. Little gray button at the top. Clients, part of
In fact, you can sit in your years,
he's gonna come and take these trees, dead trees that are right on the edge of the property and it's gonna fall on the neighbor. Good deal. So you're happy with the garage door guy? Oh, he did a great job. Man, he's such a nice guy. He talks like you when he doesn't want to quit. He likes to hang out and talk. But if you remember his age, he's still very active, very energetic. He's got to be 70. I don't know.
Like outdoor days. Yeah, like.
I thought his price was good. That's a good job.
I'm not kidding. Me?
No. Very
picture.
Well, so, all right.
Did this in November.
Director of Finance. Here is the training training.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight you will see the culmination of your elected boards of education's budget and the Board of Selectmen's budget, which has been reviewed and concurred by the Board of Finance. So up first will be Dr. Gagliarducci, who will be followed by our first selectman, Tim Kinney, and then Brian Wissinger, the Assistant Director of Finance, will review the actual numbers and how we get to the budget we're presenting. I'm Joe Talisano. I'm a member of the Board of Finance. Michael Parker, the chair, is out of town on some family matters. Our vice chair, Kathy Devlin, will be holding a meeting after this to concur on the budget. Ralph Williams is a member of the Board of Finance, and Bruce Devlin is also here from the Board of Finance. At the front table here, we have Mike Marinaccio, a CFO. Dr. Gagliarducci will introduce our new superintendent, Sam. Tim Kinney, our first selectman, and Brian Wissinger. So we'll start off with Dr. Gagliarducci.
Okay. Thank you very much. It's very nice to be here. So I was the interim superintendent this year from August until the end of March, and during that time, the gentleman to the left is our new superintendent of schools, Dr. Sam Galloway. The Board of Education asked me to help present the budget because I was the superintendent when we put this together. Just want to make mention and thank Mrs. Stephanie Levin, who was our business manager, who did an incredible amount of work working with me on the project. Also want to mention a thank you to Kim Radowitz, who is the chair of our policy, our budget, and our planning committee, which is somewhat of a new committee, if I believe. And Mrs. Ann Kirkpatrick, our chair of the board. That committee did a lot of work with us over the last 3-4 months. They were meeting with us, and as we presented our budget, they asked questions, and we were able to come up with what we think is a very reasonable budget, and we made our presentation to the Board of Finance, and it was received, I hope, fairly well. I want to make mention that Dr. Galloway, although he was not officially the superintendent, he's been part of the budget process as well. He was selected and signed a contract in January, I believe, and so for the past 3 months, he has followed the budget process and has attended some meetings as well. So now that he's on board, he will take this budget and implement it, hopefully in July, beginning in July. So, our budget theme this year was that we have one purpose, and that is to start to finish. So these pictures show elementary school children, and then obviously end up with our students at graduation time. So that's our purpose. Our main budget goals this year were to maintain the current programs that we have, to be fiscally responsible to the town and to the taxpayers. But we did have a couple issues that we had to deal with. One was that there was, the Board of Finance was kind enough to work with the Board of Ed last year, and through some federal funding, we were able to fund a number of positions and keep those positions in the district, and a number of those positions are a result of bringing the kids on board back from their time at dealing with the COVID pandemic. And we also had an issue with a fairly large health insurance increase. So those were the two obstacles that we had to deal with. So there are no new positions per se in the budget. When I say per se, it means that we actually have a couple less people working for us than we do this year. We did reallocate some money for some different positions, but our numbers are actually a little bit lower than they were last year in terms of actual staffing. We had to make some difficult decisions, so we were on a plan to, have a fairly robust technology replacement plan, and we did make some changes in that plan, for next year. And, we came about the notion of replacing some science textbooks at the high school. We've got that on a different program than we had originally planned, but we should be okay for another year at least. And we made a major change in our health insurance plan. We were on a, health insurance, individual health insurance or group health insurance plan. We've gone over to the state plan, and we anticipate saving a lot of money. So our budget increase is 4.34%, roughly a little over $1 million from last year. This, we feel, is a number that is within the realm of other surrounding districts. We're probably a little in the middle of the pack, but in requesting this amount of money, we can complete our goals. When we started the process, we asked our administrators to submit to us what they consider what they would like in terms of staffing and materials, and that number was over 8%. So we have tightened our belts a little bit, and we have made some changes, and as I said, one of the biggest changes that we made was in the health insurance area. Saved us several $100,000 by going over to the state plan. Just to give you a quick run-through, it's no surprise that a major part of the school budget rests with salaries. Those salaries in that pie chart represent everyone from custodians to administrators, cafeteria people, support staff, paraprofessionals, secretaries, administrators, and teachers. Everybody's in that pie. One of the things that we did look at was the positions that were funded by the grant, as I mentioned, and you can see that there is a high school social worker that we're not going to have come back, but we've reallocated those funds. And there was a individual help run a computer lab at the high school, and we're going to staff that with some existing staff, so we are not rehiring that person. But we have, with the help of the Board of Finance, we were able to fund a number of positions last year, and those are all listed, and we did not want to lose those positions, so we have absorbed those within that 4% budget that I mentioned before. As normal, to keep the buildings running, fuel, oil, those are always the things that are difficult for us to cut back on. We show an increase in the insurance line, but it is a much smaller increase than we had originally anticipated. Our estimated number, when we first started the budget process, we were looking at a 33% increase in costs for insurance. That number has been cut dramatically by entering in partnership with the Connecticut program. I'm just going to skip ahead to I don't think that's important, so we're going to get rid of that slide. So that's our budget. So, as I mentioned, we made a lot of decisions in terms of what the administrators had asked for. We found ways to fund a couple of positions that are different by reallocating funds by eliminating some other positions. But in general, our numbers are a little bit less than this year in terms of staffing, but we're fairly comfortable that we'll have a good program and it will be staffed adequately, come September if the people in the town of Summers are kind enough to, support our budget.
I got it, 'cause I'm selectman.
Thank you, yeah.
Right or left, yeah. So you gotta go right.
Okay. Yeah, good evening. Hi, my name's Tim Keeney. I'm, first selectman here in town.
Like 12.
And it's the responsibility of the Board of Selectmen to put together the town budget. We worked with all of our directors, especially the Finance Department, which I think was very helpful in getting everyone focused on what the real priorities need to be, the limitations of the budget process, focus on needs versus wants, and yet be underscored with being fair and reasonable with regards to every budget, to deliver services to the public for the lowest amount possible. We listen to residents, staff, and most importantly to each other as members of the board to create this budget. We work together to create a consensus budget that reflects the priorities of our town. I encourage residents to learn about this budget, find positives within the policies and services that the budget supports, and encourage your family and friends to vote yes on May 16th referendum. So as you can see from this slide, our increase over last year's budget is 1.12%. And please keep that figure in mind when you hear about the challenges we had and the successes we met in putting together this budget. So within this 1.12% increase, we accomplished the following significant changes. We're adding a part-time human resources assistant, something that the town has never really had in the past that we dearly need. It'll be a tremendous assistance to all town employees. We completed a 3-year process of centralizing all energy and utility costs, thanks to Todd Rowland. We added a full-time recreation coordinator, which is going to significantly increase the number of programs that we'll have offered to residents of the town. This is a position that was funded by ARPA funds, American Rescue Plan Act monies last year, and we're now funding it within the budget itself. Also, along those same lines, the town's IT firm that was previously funded by ARPA funds and now have been brought into the budget as well. So, of course, one of our priorities was to wean any existing ARPA funding from the prior year's budget, so we have no reliance on ARPA funds for this year's budget. With regards to increases, we also took many measures to alleviate the taxpayers' burden. We increased the health insurance cost share per employee. So we increased by a factor of over 10% what each employee will pay towards their health care. This is something we expect to continue in the future as well. We reorganized the town financial department, including tax, the assessment office, assessor's office, and the finance departments, eliminating a position and decreasing the overall cost of that department. And we moved the direct EMS, emergency medical support expenses to the ambulance fund to match incoming revenues. We did this because we felt it was more transparent in matching revenues with expenditures and allowing for year-end reconciliation if necessary. So here we have the budget by departmental expenditures. one that you may not, if you can read it, the one you may not totally understand is it talks about general government, which is 21%, upper right-hand corner. That includes land use, town clerk's office, finance office, tax, elections, first selectman's office, and IT expenses. Budget by categories. As Paul had mentioned, the largest portion of the budget, of course, are salaries and benefits. The public safety, which refers to its left-hand side there, 6%, that includes fire department training, the purchase of operational equipment, the funding for our state resident trooper, bunker gear, and uniforms. Categorical budget changes. The budget includes a 3.5% salary pool that we'll use to address those employees that warrant a salary increase. That's a decrease overall of $415,000. That is primarily because the paramedic budget has been moved to the ambulance fund, which also includes within it funds that we receive from services we provide to the prisons here in town, as well as funds we provide to Stafford for ALS services. Under benefits, again, the health insurance premium increased by 7.1%, but that was offset by the Board of Selectmen increasing the employee cost share by about 10%. Public safety, again, we direct the EMS-related costs were removed from the general fund budget and transferred to the ambulance fund. I mentioned that before. Public works, there's an increase of $331,000, but that responds directly to the increased energy, fuel costs, as well as additional road maintenance that we put into this year's budget that we didn't have in last year's budget. Transfer station, an increase of $28,000. Those costs are directly related to the continually increasing costs of handling our household waste, and also our recycling materials. And finally, a few other items, one of which I might mention, it mentions legal fees. We budgeted just $50,000 for legal fees, and that's, of course, something we can't really control because the town has to defend litigation where it's in the town's best interest to do so. And Worthington Pond alone, we budgeted $50,000 for this item. Worthington Pond issues alone have sucked up $20,000 of legal fees, and our solar field debates litigation that we're involved with has sucked up another $80,000. So you can see the staffing has not changed that much over the last 5 years, considering the services that we're providing to the town. And our future vision includes the Senior Community Center, which we anticipate having a town referendum to decide whether or not to support that in November. And development of the Somersville Mill site is something that we have as a high priority. We just met with a group of developers this afternoon that we think there's tremendous merit in what they're presenting. You'll hear more about that later. We also have a sidewalk committee that was being chaired by Todd Rowland, which tries to put together a plan for what kind of sidewalks the town needs to support its residents and economic interests. And we hope to have this plan completed within 6 months. There's lots of money, state money out there to support sidewalks, but you don't get the money unless you have a plan. I don't know what's up with that, but, you know. And then, upgrades to the Somersville Water Treatment Facility. This is something that, we worked with Congressman Joe Courtney, and we were able to receive just about $1 million of, federal funds to support very important upgrades to that facility. It's been in existence now for over 45 years. That's my portion of the budget.
Thanks, Tim. Good evening. I'm Brian Wissinger. I'm the Assistant Finance Director in town. I'm going to go through the overall budget and the revenue projections to fund that budget. As you saw, the town government at $8.6 million, and the Board of Ed at $27.4 million. The two additional portions to that are debt service costs. That's our outstanding bonds year after year. This year, those payments are right at $1.7 million, and a capital improvement transfer to aid in purchasing capital equipment in town of $250,000, bringing a total budget to $38,048,558, or a 1.28% increase. As you can see, the Board of Education makes up 72% of the total budget in town, town government being the other 23%, debt service at 4% of our total budget, and capital improvement at 1%. Year after year, our budget increases change. As you can see, in 2019, it only went up 0.08%. Our average growth year over year is 2.69%, with an average annual inflation over the last 6 years of 3.98% and a current year inflation rate of 6.5%. So to be able to do this for 1.28% as a total overall budget really shows the work that both the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Ed put into keeping costs down. Year over year, our actual dollars of budget history, again, a small increase over last year's total budget. Our projected revenues, as in most towns in Connecticut, property taxes make up the majority of your funding. Property taxes are 72% of our projected revenues for the year, with state aid making up 23%, and other funding sources such as permits, banking interest, and fund balance to make up the remaining gaps. Grand list growth for the year was 1.33%. That is mostly due to any construction in town. As you can see, back in 2020, from 2019, there was a large growth. That was a revaluation year. Those happen every 5 years. We're actually beginning funding this year to pay for the next reval that will be coming due in 2 years. That is part of our budget this year. And then in 2021, it grew again, and that was due to the motor vehicle appreciation that happened because of the COVID pandemic. Used vehicles actually went up for 1 year versus decreasing in value. You look at our mill rate history over the last 6 years. For 3 years, we stayed flat, and then again, that revaluation year, we readjusted the mill rate based on the grand list, and the mill rate went down then and has slowly crept back up since then. However, it would be noticed that 0.94 mills over the last 6 years is our total increase. That's a 0.15 year over year for the last 6 years. Summers remains the lowest mill rate in all of Tallinn County. This year, Tolland is projecting to go up to 37.33, which is a 0.75 mill increase. Ellington, just next door, is looking to go to 35.3, which is a 2.8 mill increase. Coventry is going to 31.74, which is a 0.6 increase, and Suffield is staying at 28.61. It also goes without saying we are just above the lowest in Hartford County as well, which is Windsor Locks, who is at 26.33 this year.
And they have an airport.
And they have an airport, exactly.
We do too.
The Board of Finance does have a strategic utilization of fund balance, to mitigate property tax increases. Over the last, 6 years, the Board of Finance has used $2.4 million, to offset property tax increases. It's equivalent to a 2.48 mil increase. So when we're talking 28.31 this year, without that use of fund balance that was strategically used, we would be closer to 30.8. The Board of Finance has adopted a policy to maintain a minimum of 15% unrestricted fund balance. Our current fund balance is at 16.25%. This year, the fund balance proposal is to use $493,880. It's equivalent to a half a mil that's being offset. Historical usage, as you can see in 2021, Board of Finance adopted a large amount of fund balance. That was completely due to COVID to avoid any kind of tax increase. We were unprepared for what was going to happen and did not know, so the best thing to do was to avoid hitting the taxpayers' pockets. Thankfully, we came through that unscathed. As you can see, it goes as low. Last year, we used $75,000. However, that was offset with an additional appropriation of use of ARPA funds of $643,000 to mitigate tax increases as well. So I'll pass it over to Joe Tolosano to take on any public comments.
So the rules for public comments are only one person speaks at a time. Clearly state your name and address. Please limit your comments to 5 minutes. Once everyone has spoken, we'll do another round robin. All comments and questions are recorded, and thank you for your cooperation in advance. So at this point in time, we'll open the floor up for any comments or questions regarding the presentation so far. Come on, Steve, don't disappoint us. We're all waiting for it.
I can't let it go by.
No, we would be remiss, right?
I got one question on the income side. Is on?
Yes.
We're getting like a little over $8 million of state aid. The governor has proposed that he's going to do great things for education this budget year and all that good stuff, but you only have a $5,000 increase on our side for income. You sure that number's right? It doesn't seem to me. The governor's saying, I'm going to give you, you only gave us $5.
Our ECS funding actually went down this year. It was reduced, so while he is giving, he's not giving to Summers.
A lot of that state increase in educational aid is going to underprivileged communities.
It's going other places then, huh?
Yes.
Cities,
Yes.
Cities,
Okay.
urban areas, underprivileged communities.
Underserved.
Underserved,
Yeah.
thank you.
Okay. Now, next thing, which is probably going to be an unusual question for me. I've gone through your minutes, Tim. A lot of people leaving the town of Summers employment. You sure the 3.5% increase in salary is going to be sufficient?
I think it is. I think, it's always a challenge to attract new personnel, and when new personnel come in, many times you have to, entice them with, salaries. But I think we can handle it.
Okay, all right. Okay, and last thing, Paul, thanks for coming back. Now, I'm gonna give you a bar on questioning, okay, so you get away with this year. Thanks.
Somehow I knew, well, that's it, no question? I mean, I guess a lot has changed in 22 years, right?
No.
Any other comments or questions? Yes, please. And We all know Steve, but we may not know you, so if you could state your name and address.
Lisa Horan, 43 Shady Dell Lane. I concur with Steve's thanks to Dr. Gagliarducci, and I welcome our new superintendent. I attend Board of Ed meetings regularly, and I appreciate the work that everyone put into the Board of Ed budget. I also had a similar thought to Steve about the resignations in town, people leaving for better paying positions elsewhere. And one thing, when I put my head on the pillow at night, I know that there's no elected official in this town who doesn't think long and hard about how they spend every tax dollar, and I appreciate that. I'm wondering if we need to start educating taxpayers about the need to up our competitiveness in terms of salaries and benefits, and it sounds like we're hitting a problem there, and I think if down the road, if we're going to have to increase salaries and benefits when we're increasing insurance co-pays, that's a decrease in salary effectively. I think all of us might need to start a conversation in town about the need to make salaries and benefits more competitive. Thanks, everyone.
Just to respond to that, Lisa, I just tell you that because of the need for an HR person, which we've recognized now for a while, we had a consultant that we hired this past year. One of the things that she did was to do a salary analysis, a survey of every position we have, pretty much, that fits into various categories. And we're paying a lot of attention to that. And we're also paying attention to the fact that some of these positions that people are getting from other towns are way outside of that scope of the survey. I mean, they're much higher. So it's a challenge, but I think also we also offer a very strong benefit package, which is not taxed, by the way. Try to let people know that. Significant part of their benefit, what they receive from the town is in the form of benefits, usually somewhere around 60% of their salary. So that's something else, I think, that helps us attract people. And of course, it's the town of Somers too, so who wouldn't want to work for the town of Somers?
If I could add to that, as Chief Financial Officer, I have the tax collector and the assessor that report to me. I've lost both of them in the past 4 months.
Yeah.
The assessor went to another job, is paying him $55,000 a year more than what he makes here. Our tax collector is going to another job, is paying around $20,000 to $25,000 more than she made here. So the competition is fierce.
And her collection rate was 100%.
And it is fierce, and so
that's hard to
we're doing everything we can to plug the hole in the boat. We reorganized the finance group, as one of the points was there, in order to, we were lucky we had an assistant assessor who is now at the point of, who is certified and can be an assessor now, a full assessor. So there are different things we can do, but it's fierce. So the competition is unbelievable lately. So.
Thank you all.
I might also just add to what he said. He talked about reorganizing the finance office, which was a great move. They did a terrific job. We're hoping to do the same in the land use office, where we have possibly fewer people, but more pay. And we're going to be interviewing next week for a building official that we've needed for a long time, and this will be a full-time building official.
Good. I appreciate all your work. Thank you. Thanks for the presentation.
Anyone else care to approach?
Catherine Mashak, 54 Springfield Road. I just have a question about what you were just saying. They went to jobs that were paying them more. Were they bigger towns? Yeah. So they're having more responsibility.
Yeah, one town is Weathersfield, another town is Wyndham. So
yeah. So, you know, it's hard to judge competition that way, you know, because we don't have the needs that a town like Weathersfield does. And they probably have a lot more responsibility there than they do here. So we need is people who like it without stress.
You know, actually, that's a very good point, and that there are people who are assistant so-and-sos in other towns that are larger, and you just want to get away from all the noise and come to a more quiet community and with a tight-knit group at work. So we do get candidates that are like that, so.
Anyone else like to make a comment or ask a question? Before we close, I'm going to put Dr. Galloway on the spot and ask him if he would like to say hi.
Good evening, everyone. I'm very happy to be here in week 2. I've had the opportunity to meet with staff, students, union leaders, to let them know and understand that I'll be a visible presence in the classroom, that I believe in excellence in all areas, and that excellence should lead to great opportunities for our young people. So thank you for having me.
Please.
Why did they put the referendum for the community center to November?
I think
we're going to have it on the budget vote in May.
It's a good question. I think the Board of Finance, other than me, thought that, I think they wanted to get better figures from the Board of Ed and try to put a whole package together for the bonding initiative.
What
For air conditioning.
Board of Ed, for the bonding issue,
Yeah.
what the Board of Ed's going to need?
Right, go ahead, Ralph, if you want to clarify.
Instigator, I guess. Thinking was that the school administration has been talking for a while about a variety of ventilation improvements, and they've gone from relatively small amounts to up to 25 million. And then most recently, we started hearing about maybe a feasibility study, maybe we'll just do air conditioning. And I wanted to, my thinking at the time was, we're talking about a couple of bonding issues which together, maybe not separately, but together, have a sizable tax impact. And for that reason, I thought it'd be best wait, first of all, to see if the school officials can come up with a package in time for November, knowing that that's not in any way a sure thing. And then, if possible, have them side by side so people can make an informed decision instead of saying, why would we do this? We have somebody just improved $12 million for community center, which I'm not speaking against, but if we find the budget referendum based on our recent output, we'll have fewer than 10% of the people making that decision. In November, we have one of the best turnouts in the state for both local and state and national elections. We'll have roughly half, at least, of the electorate voting.
Yep.
We'll have a broad consensus, and that was my thinking. I didn't see anything here that would suffer by waiting 6 months to make that decision.
Are you saying that we'll have to vote for one or the other?
No. You can vote for both.
Okay.
You can vote for neither.
All right.
But you'll have them both.
Okay.
If
All right.
you guys are ready.
We'll be ready. Thank you.
Anyone else? So at this time, I will close the public hearing on the budget and then take a short recess and invite the members of the Board of Finance up to vote on tonight's meeting. Thank you very much for participating.
Hi, how are you?
School's budget.